Chapter 665. Run? Don't you Whitebeard pirates pay attention to teamwork? In that case, going to heaven together is also a kind of teamwork. A voice filled with indifference to life resounded through the clouds. The few figures, who wanted to flee in a panic, were stunned. They stared blankly at the straight beam of light descending from the sky. Their eyes and faces were filled with despair. Dustless is not surprised by this scene. Most pirates say that they don't care about life and death, but how many people can really see through it? Even he himself is afraid of death. Boom! The light from the soles of his feet hit the ground like a meteorite, setting off a violent storm and vibration. A large flame of light swept up from the ground out of thin air, and then an invisible wave of air turned into a turbulent shock wave that scattered, swallowing everything around it. The hot fire melted and destroyed the surrounding geography, leaving a deep scorched pit in the ground. Boom! A special box escaped the catastrophe, but it was also burned and the surface turned dark red. Obviously, as long as the fire continued to persist for a while, it would melt. You killed them? Eyes locked on Dustless, Ace roared hysterically. The Whitebeard pirates pay attention to unity, and each of them is the son of Whitebeard, which also proves that the feelings of their crew members are also like brothers. Good companions on the road to the underworld, so you won't be so lonely. Dustless said with an expression that should be so. Since Whitebeard pays attention to teamwork and sends all of them on the road to heaven, Dustless feels that this special service is quite humane. Holding the iron box in his hand with a heavy look, Ace couldn't feel the hot temperature. He was like a walking corpse. The death of his companions hit Ace so hard that it almost made him collapse. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Ace roared in a low voice, determined to die. Dustless always remains indifferent to this. It's just the last cry of the beast. It's meaningless. It's just an extremely boring verbal protest. It's not very practical. For this group of pirates, Dustless has always held a contemptuous attitude. They become pirates in the name of pursuing their dreams, but more than 95% of pirates are killing and looting, and there is no rule that states that pursuing one's dream is to become a pirate. This is just their self-deceiving idea. Yang Yen. With a burst of sound, Ace's limbs suddenly appeared with some hot flames, wrapping around him, which is also a disguised defense that can resist most physical attacks. Flashy but impractical, if this trick is useful. Your Whitebeard pirates would have dominated the New World long ago. Dustless sneered with a cold light in his eyes. Then his pupils widened, and the majestic evil eye power lashed out, locking Ace's position. Almost in a short blink of an eye, Dustless came in front of him, gathering a powerful force in his hand, and mercilessly smashed it towards Ace. As for the flames covering his limbs, he simply ignored them. A single spark could not start a prairie fire. Boom! A powerful fist hit Ace's abdomen, but he had already expected Dustless to launch an attack and used elementalization to avoid the fatal fist. Your sneak attack, I predicted it. With a sneer, Ace's right arm suddenly erupted with a large flame fist, completely condensed by a raging fire. Fire fist. The moment the hot flames engulfed Dustless, his left eye suddenly widened, and a strange purple eye with 9 mysterious magatama suddenly flashed. You predicted it, what's the use? I also expected it, but it doesn't make sense to predict your tricks. The dry corners of his mouth opened slightly, and an indifferent voice came out of it. The corners of his clothes were eroded by some kind of force and swelled instantly. Shinra Tensei. The repulsive force visible to the naked eye erupted in an instant, forming a 360-degree absolute defense. The moment the mighty flaming fist came into contact with Dustless, it was simply swallowed up by this repulsive force. In an instant, the matter was settled peacefully. The exploding flames were like rain splashing all over the ground. Dustless's eyes fell on the broken corner of Ace's clothes, and he smiled, and the Rinnegan Sharingan in his left eye widened again, emitting a mysterious ripple, and the 9 black magatama in the eye socket trembled slightly. Heavenly hand power. Dustless's position and the broken corner of his clothes instantly changed. Disappeared? Seeing Wu Chen disappear strangely like a ghost, Ace exclaimed in surprise. His tone was filled with surprise and disbelief, revealing the meaning of a fantasy story. A living person suddenly disappeared without a trace in front of his eyes, and his breath was completely gone. No one could accept it, and the shock it brought was unparalleled. Immediately, he felt a chill behind him, and subconsciously turned his head, and the scene in front of him was quite horrifying. Dustless's face was covered with frost, and his cold eyes had no luster, just like a corpse, staring at Ace with eyes full of light, and there seemed to be countless fangs and a bloody mouth that could easily swallow him. At this moment, Ace never felt that death was so close. Fire gun. Resisting the suppression of the fear in his heart, Ace's fingers shot out continuous small flames. Bang bang bang, the sudden flame instantly swallowed Dustless, igniting his head, and the raging fire burned. A person's head was burning with an inextinguishable fire, and there was no chance of survival. It should be working now. Ace heaved a sigh of relief. But suddenly, a ghostly low moan and blazing heat came, causing his relieved heart to immediately tense up again. How is this possible? Looking up, he saw a strange black flame on Dustless's head. The strange black flame swallowed Ace's flame. At first it was the human face, and almost instantly it swallowed and annihilated the crimson flame on Dustless's face, revealing his unscathed self. Chapter 666. The black flames were noble and evil, like the king of all fires, swallowing Ace's flames easily, as if he had met his natural enemy and had no power to fight back, overbearing and direct. It can devour my flames? Ace's tone was filled with surprise and doubt. He was quite surprised. The flame of flame fruit is famous in the world for its power. Ace said that it was the first time in his life that he had encountered a flame that could swallow him. It's really not simple. The vicissitudes of life sighed from Dustless's mouth. As his voice fell, the flames burning on his head also disappeared, revealing the intact Dustless. His skin and face were abnormally clean, as white and tender as before, and even his hair was not damaged at all. Flame attacks are useless against me. In fact, you lost at the beginning of this battle. Dustless looked at Ace and said coldly. His eyes widened, and the overbearing and unstoppable repulsion broke out again. Shinra Tensei. Boom. Although he used elementalization to escape at the first time, his whole body turned into a pile of flames and he was easily bounced back by the oncoming repulsion. The flames were all over the ground. Why didn't father kill him directly? Yushi blinked and asked curiously. Maybe he wants to use him, Fire Fist Ace. The value of using him is far greater than killing him. White Zetsu guessed in a deep voice. Following Dustless for many years, he was not ignorant. The Whitebeard pirates are loyal and righteous, which is their unity and fatal weakness. Emotional bondage is always a double-edged sword, and it depends on how it is used. If it is not handled properly, it will naturally become a fatal poison. If I remember correctly, you were full of confidence just now, but now you are in a mess. Dustless said indifferently, his angular face without sadness or joy. The flames on the ground closed, and Ace's figure was recondensed, holding the iron box in his hand tightly. His eyes changed back and forth, and the hesitation on his face finally turned into determination. Your purpose should be for the dark fruit. Ace's sharp eyes looked straight at Dustless, and he said affirmatively. The early bird gets the worm, and the early worm gets eaten by the bird. Up until now, Ace could only admit that he was unlucky. Facing this cruel reality, Ace believed that he was no match for Dustless. However, he would never let Dustless get what he wanted. I'm indeed here for the dark fruit. Why? Could it be that you want to give it to me? Stop dreaming. Even if you beg for mercy, I won't let you go. As Whitebeard's 2nd Division captain, you should understand your value. Dustless said bluntly. Ace only had a sneer on his face, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a strange smile, as if victory was already in his grasp. Are you still confident in yourself? Dustless frowned. He couldn't help but admire Ace's tenacity. At this point, even an ignorant child could tell who was the victor. You want it? Ace threw the iron box aside and took out the dark fruit with a strange purple pattern. The smile on the corner of his mouth became more obvious. Ace looked at Dustless playfully, and there was a hint of ridicule in his tone. He smiled and said, "What do you think will happen if I eat it?" Having said that, Ace's smile became wider. This was also a thought that suddenly flashed in his mind. The world said that a devil fruit ability user could only eat one, but no one knew what would happen if he ate two. Ace was gambling. If he could die, it would be best. This way, neither he nor the dark fruit would fall into Dustless's hands. If he didn't die, his strength would skyrocket. Therefore, he looked at Dustless expectantly. He thought that Dustless's face would turn blue, but what he saw was surprisingly calm. If you can eat it, you can try. Dustless looked at Ace calmly with a frozen expression. Hearing this, Ace's face darkened. Dustless' words seemed to mean that he didn't dare and didn't have the ability. It was as if the devil fruit in his hand could fly out of thin air. Flying into a rage out of humiliation, Ace directly brought it to his mouth. Ha ha ha. Ace, he's right. You really can't eat it. That thing is mine. A naive kid like you can't use the dark fruit's ability. Just give it to me, idiot. Unbridled mockery resounded through the boundless sky, followed by a gust of wind that swept past Ace. The dark, chilly wind made one's hair stand on end. Suddenly, he felt that his hand was empty. The devil fruit that was about to be put into his mouth disappeared into thin air. He subconsciously opened his eyes. Bastard, which bastard stole my devil fruit? After a moment of sluggishness, Ace opened his eyes and his eyes spat fire. Because of his excessive anger, his already overdrawn physical strength erupted again. It was even more vast and infinite than before. He instinctively looked at Dustless, but saw that he had an expression that said it had nothing to do with him. He pointed to the figure hidden in the darkness on the left. Ace subconsciously forgot about it. Titch. Why are you here? Ace's expression changed drastically as he glared at him with an unfriendly expression. The blurry figure was clearly visible in the darkness. It had messy hair, an ugly face, uneven teeth, a protruding belly, and a dense chest hair. In the whole world, other than Blackbeard Marshall D. Titch, no one else had such a sneaky look. Ace breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was one of his own. No, this guy had an ambush. How did he know that I traded the devil fruit with others on the island? Ace's relieved heart suddenly tightened. Realizing that something was wrong, Ace's face changed drastically. TSK, the final winner is still me. Blackbeard smiled proudly, unusually arrogant. In fact, he had been secretly watching the battle for a long time. He was forced to come out when he saw Ace about to swallow the dark fruit. How did he know that you traded? Isn't that simple? Because the people you killed were originally my underlings. Blackbeard became even more pleased with himself when he spoke up to this point. Every devil fruit transaction, he actually sent people to secretly observe. The fundamental purpose of his hiding in the Whitebeard pirates was to get the dark fruit. As for the filial piety of his father, he left it to his filial sons. Chapter 667. Looking at the dark fruit in his hand, Blackbeard was beaming with joy. His eyes were filled with greed. For today, he had endured for 10 to 20 years and suffered countless humiliation. Until today, his dream was realized. Blackbeard's eyes emitted the glow of a tiger and wolf. Even his breathing was unusually heavy. Immediately, he opened his large mouth and swallowed without any hesitation. He didn't even peel the skin. Dustless, Sama, why didn't you stop the kid? The dark fruit is gone again. White Zetsu was depressed. He was sure that Dustless had the ability to stop him, but he remained indifferent. Wuchen just kept silent and had a strange expression on his face. After a while, seeing that Blackbeard had completely swallowed the entire dark fruit, Dustless couldn't help but say, "How loud is Blackbeard's voice?" He swallowed the dark fruit directly and didn't choke to death. His words petrified everyone in an instant, including Fire Fist Ace's body. He looked at Dustless in a new light. This is really big." White Zetsu, who recovered, agreed. Everyone nodded secretly. They didn't expect Blackbeard to be able to swallow the dark fruit. It was rare for a monster to be able to swallow a devil fruit with a human body. Naturally, Blackbeard could hear the mockery in his words. He just sneered. "Kahaha. This power really makes one jump for joy," Blackbeard said as he danced with joy. His entire body was emitting black light as he carefully experienced the dark energy that was swimming in his body. Blackbeard's rough old face was fanatical, filled with excitement and joy. "Blackbeard. Why are you here?" Ace questioned. His murderous intent was obvious. "It seems that you are an idiot." Blackbeard sneered. "I lurked in the Whitebeard pirates from the beginning for the dark fruit. You want me to work for Whitebeard? Do I look like such a kind person to you?" Blackbeard teased. His thick lips were raised high as if he was a villain who had achieved his goal. These words instantly aroused Ace's killing intent. Mirror fire, boom. Just as he was about to kill Blackbeard, an unexpected gunshot suddenly sounded. Ace's body had a terrible bloody hole out of thin air. Excellent marksmanship. It seems that Blackbeard hasn't done nothing these years. He has a reliable companion. His pupils narrowed as he thought of the Blackbeard pirate sniper. Dustless nodded. This bullet obviously has armament hockey, so it can penetrate Ace. Overconfident trash, you think you can kill me? Looking at Ace with disdain, Blackbeard laughed sinisterly. At the same time, he looked at Dustless with a cautious look. As the youngest and arguably the strongest admiral in marine history, his strength is beyond imagination. Being able to crush Ace like a bug explained everything. Moreover, looking at Wu Chen's appearance, it was obvious that he wasn't serious. Dark water. Seeing that Dustless didn't show any signs of interfering, a strong gravitational force shot out from his hand. It was abnormally powerful, and it easily sucked Ace over in an instant. Boom! Ruthlessly stepping on the ground, Blackbeard looked down at Ace. "How about it, my 2nd Division captain? If you are willing to be my subordinate, I don't mind letting you go." At the same time, he looked at Dustless with a hidden look, which obviously means that they can join hands to kill him. In this regard, Dustless turned a deaf ear and stood in place, completely ignoring both of them. Blackbeard was furious. He had already eaten the dark fruit, and this kid was still so arrogant. "In your dreams. I'd rather be that man's subordinate than you. You're even more despicable than him." Ace sneered and pointed at Wu Chen. Hearing this, Blackbeard's face turned green. "You are looking for death," Blackbeard said with a fierce look in his eyes. There was a dark luster in his hand, and space and time showed signs of distortion. When he was about to kill Ace, a cold smile swept across his face, cruel and numbing. "Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish and send you to heaven, but it is too easy for you to die so quickly, Captain," Blackbeard said in a joking tone. The Whitebeard pirates pay attention to their companions. "I can tell you that a few years ago, the death of the 4th Division Captain Thatch was caused by me. No. I encouraged him to steal the dark fruit. I didn't expect that fool to be so fearless for the safety of Whitebeard. What an idiot. Ha 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 ha." Blackbeard laughed wildly, and his proud smile was full of endless arrogance. "You bastard, I'll tear you to shreds." Hearing this, Ace's eyes were bloodshot and looked as if they were about to fall out. The Whitebeard pirates' principle of mutual love is deeply rooted in people's hearts. There is no distinction between the crew members, and they are all one of Whitebeard's sons. "Hey. If you don't like me, you can come and kill me. You're just a mere rat. You should know when to stop." A ghostly voice suddenly resounded behind him. Blackbeard was suddenly stunned. He turned his head abruptly and looked at Wu Chen, who was behind him with his hair standing on end. Looking at your silly look, I am upset. Do you really think you are in control of everything? Don't be so self-righteous. Dustless sneered. Light speed kick. Regardless of how the dull Blackbeard was, his calf covered with golden luster mercilessly hit Blackbeard's old face, and he suddenly flew out like a cannonball. The ground was pulled into a deep scorched gully. Idiot, you provoked Thatch to steal the dark fruit, but the source of the dark fruit is me. In the end, you are just a pawn in my calculations, idiot Blackbeard, hee hee. Chapter 668. Dustless smiled and looked at Blackbeard, who was like a stray dog, and his heart was particularly refreshed. This old guy is as smart as a mouse, and it's not easy to get rid of him. What did you say? Blackbeard roared, covering his burnt face. The power of the lightspeed kick was unusual, and it happened suddenly. There was no gap in Blackbeard's defense, and he was completely exposed under Dustless's eyes. In addition to being destroyed, he was still destroyed. You bastard, I will not let you go, absolutely. He got up from the ground in a sorry state and looked at his nose. Blackbeard's heart was cloudy. He didn't expect Wu Chen to be so ruthless. His nose was kicked crooked. Ah. Don't look so hateful. No matter what, you ate the dark fruit. I thought you could withstand this blow, Wu Chen said matter-of-factly, seemingly quite disappointed. Blackbeard's face was blue. If he could, he would never want to fight a marine admiral. After all, the strength of an admiral is known to the world. Even Kizaru, Akainu, and Akiji are now among the top peerless masters. The one in front of him is even more shocking. He served as a marine admiral 10 years ago. His information is the oldest, and he rarely fights. Of course, it's because the people who have seen Dustless fight have disappeared. What do you mean, what does the dark fruit from 10 years ago have to do with you? Blackbeard asked gloomily, and at the same time, he was on guard against Dustless. He glared at Ace fiercely. As long as there was a chance, he would choose to kill him. Don't you understand? I thought you were smarter than others, but now it seems that I took it for granted. Dustless shook his head and sighed. In order to cause the war between the Whitebeard pirates and the Big Imam pirates, I contributed the dark fruit that I had been looking for several years, and you are responsible for appearing in my play. Dustless said calmly and seriously talked about the plan 10 years ago. In order to cause the war between the Whitebeard pirates and the Big Imam pirates, he spent a lot of effort. He was afraid that no one would be fooled. This is thanks to the witty Blackbeard who recommended himself as the first male lead. Thinking of this, Dustless involuntarily gave a thumbs up to Blackbeard. His acting skills had reached perfection. First male lead? Hearing this, Blackbeard's rough face twitched and he stared at Dustless. If eyes could kill, Dustless would have been cut into pieces by now. The blood and chi in his chest roiled, and Blackbeard felt as if there was a huge boulder blocking his chest, almost suffocating him. Go to hell. Blackbeard stared at Wu Chen and flashed a cruel smile. Although I don't know what kind of fruit you have, it seems to be very similar to Kizaru's. It would be disrespectful for me to refuse. After saying that, Blackbeard's body emitted a strange black gravitational force. Just like what you said before, nothing can escape the grasp of gravity. Blackbeard's palms suddenly turned pitch black and aimed at Wu Chen, erupting with a strong gravitational force. Dark water. The powerful gravity pulled Dustless back in an instant. Blackbeard sneered, then his right arm clenched into a fist and smashed towards Dustless's face without hesitation. Dustless just responded with a sneer. Shinra Tensei. At the moment of contact with Blackbeard, a strong repulsive force broke out and swallowed Blackbeard in an instant. Boom! Blackbeard, who was caught off guard, was instantly bounced away. The powerful force smashed several walls and fell into a deep pit with blood all over his body. Damn it, it hurts. Blackbeard screamed, his fat body fell to the ground and rolled, looking extremely painful. His 5 fingers were all wearing various gemstone rings, showing the temperament of a nouveau riche. Playing with gravity in front of me. I really don't know where you get your confidence from. Dustless rubbed his head and looked at the screaming Blackbeard with a headache. His face was full of helplessness. In front of Tensigan and Rinnegan, the dark fruit's gravity was not worth mentioning. When the power of Chibaku Tensei reached a certain level, it was enough to create the moon, and the repulsive force of Tensigan could control the moon. Compared with these two, the dark fruit was meaningless. In addition, the biggest disadvantage of the dark fruit was that it was the essence of darkness and could not be elementalized. The pain it suffered was also doubled, so it would be torturous to be hit by Shinra Tensei. This pain is nothing. If I get you, I can get your ability. This pain is not worth mentioning at all. Blackbeard stood up crazily, and his whole body was covered with monstrous darkness. It was vast and surging like a black dragon, instantly spreading and swallowing the entire island. On this unknown island, the surrounding buildings were swallowed in an instant, and all kinds of life were absorbed. Even the surface was pulled out, revealing a lifeless appearance. Everything was hit hard. In the face of gravity, everything in the world was so fragile. This was because Blackbeard was not proficient in it after eating the dark fruit. Ha ha ha. Even if you repent now, I will not let you go. Blackbeard laughed maniacally like a maniac. He raised his voice and exposed his belly. He did not care about Wuchen's feelings and laughed maniacally. Perhaps in his eyes, Dustless was a worthless corpse after he deprived him of his ability. After a few breaths, all the darkness disappeared. Liberate. Suddenly, with a roar from Blackbeard, a black pillar of light suddenly emerged from his body. All kinds of buildings and the earth that had been swallowed before were released and gathered into a large area. The terrifying momentum almost crushed the entire sky. With a wave of his hand, all of it smashed toward Dustless. Amazing momentum, no wonder you can be so confident. Raising his eyelids, he looked at Blackbeard with pity. Dustless obviously didn't mean what he said. Although he was praising Blackbeard, there was always a slight smile on his face. Then, a black energy ball swept towards the sky. Chibaku Tensei. Chapter 669. Blackbeard's face was flushed, and even because of excessive excitement, his whole face was as red as a monkey's butt. He looked at the falling debris of various houses that almost covered the sky and gasped directly. This is the strongest and most evil devil fruit in history. He. Are you scared, silly? Are you kidding me? The wild laughter stopped, and it was sharp. Blackbeard's pupils widened, and he looked up at the black bead in the sky. His excited heart felt like it was stepped on hundreds of times, and the pain was unforgettable. Boom, the majestic gravity that was enough to destroy the entire island rushed out from the black bead, and the whole earth trembled violently as if there was a magnitude 10 earthquake. The island is shaking. No, according to the frequency of the vibration, it seems like the entire world is shaking. Blackbeard exclaimed in disbelief. His old face was cold, and he felt the boundless gravity. His hair stood on end, and it almost tore his body into pieces. He looked at the ugly black sphere in the sky in horror, and his heart was in his throat. Blackbeard was different from Red Hair, Shanks and Whitebeard. He was a real villain, and his life was very important. Everything he did was based on his life. Of course, it was undeniable that he was indeed very successful. Even Whitebeard, who had lived for more than half a century, fell in the hands of Blackbeard. Blackbeard, you have been wrong from the beginning to the end. I am not Red Hair Shanks, nor Whitebeard. You only look at me at the level of a general. Extremely ignorant. Dustless sneered, and he was full of contempt for Blackbeard. He and Red Hair, or Whitebeard, fought with their lives on the line. Only Blackbeard was opportunistic, and he would immediately slip away when he saw that the wind was not right. No wonder he did not have Haoshiku Haki. Don't push your luck. Blackbeard warned with a black face, but he did not sound confident. So what if I push my luck, I still want to kick your nose and slap you until you are confused." His eyes shot out a cold light, and a burst of evil eye power jumped out from his eyes, and the void rippled. "Open your dog eyes and let me see what is real gravity." As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Chen put his palms together and shouted loudly. "Ha!" The black pearls floating in the sky instantly increased their gravitational force by dozens of times. They became denser and wider, covering the entire island. "You bastard, what are you trying to do? Let me tell you, this island is finished. As a devil fruit user, you will become a drowned rat. Don't act rashly." Blackbeard quickly roared, "Also, aren't you a righteous marine? Are you going to kill everyone in this path?" Blackbeard thought that he was crazy enough, but he suddenly found that he was not half as crazy as Dustless. As a marine, he wanted all the people on this island to be buried with him. This should be the script for One Piece. You took the wrong script. At the same time, his vigilance against Dustless rose rapidly. Compared with the crazy old man Dustless, the latter is not even worthy of being an apprentice. People like Dustless who do things as he pleases are more difficult to deal with than anyone else. Of course I won't do it. Although I've killed countless people, I'm not a heartless person. It's just that you used to think highly of yourself and despise everything. But now, your heart and soul are trembling. Human nature is really hard to predict. Tut tut. Wu Chen smiled and joked. The shaking of the whole earth also stopped, but there was an unprecedented meteorite in the sky, completely condensed from the buildings of the entire town. The shadow coincides with the island. Is this really something that humans can do? Blackbeard's forehead was full of cold sweat, and he was full of fear. Staring at Dustless's immature face, and thinking of his past experience, there are only two endings when encountering his enemies: either they are erased forever, or they are thrown into impelled down with broken limbs. People who can do this kind of thing, Blackbeard can only think of one word: God. Ace, who was seriously injured and unconscious, was also stunned. The exaggerated meteorite filled the entire sky and occupied his entire field of vision. Maybe with just one order, the island will collapse. Blackbeard, do you know the difference between human beings and God? Dustless seemed to see through Blackbeard's inner thoughts, and immediately stretched lazily, and tiredly said. Hearing this, Blackbeard was stunned and said bluntly, "Difference? God can destroy the world with a flick of his finger, and normal human beings can only look at the sky from the bottom of a well." Blackbeard's face was full of unwillingness. Since ancient times, who didn't want to surpass this vast sky? It's just that no one can do it. Dustless just shook his finger, and his eyes fell into memory. Suddenly, he remembered the figure of Uchiha Madara in the last world. In fact, he already understood what a god is. The ambition of human beings is just to rule the paradise in front of them. Their vision is vulgar and narrow, but God uses everything in the world as a chessboard and chess pieces. This is the essential difference. Dustless said indifferently. Just like Kaguya, the goddess of Uno, she doesn't care about the so-called world at all, because she can create such a world in an instant. All human beings are her soldiers, but they are also chess pieces. Blackbeard carefully tasted the philosophy in it, and suddenly felt that Dustless's words were very reasonable. If you want to transcend this world, you can't be limited by the vulgar word world. Blackbeard suddenly felt particularly cheerful. One Piece and the king of the world are actually floating clouds. Eternal immortality is the way of the king, and for a time, his ambition soared. Staring at Dustless's smiling face, Blackbeard's smile instantly froze, and he realized that something was wrong. Are you saying that you treat everyone as a chess piece or a toy? With a black face, Blackbeard asked gloomily, thinking that Dustless was pointing out his bright path, but he didn't expect that he was taking the opportunity to ridicule him for overestimating himself. What do you think? With a smile on his face, Dustless shook his hand, and the floating meteorite in the sky also trembled. Some soil peeled off, not much, but all fell on Blackbeard's head. Chapter 670. Blackbeard's rough face was dull and fearful. He was originally a person who was afraid of death. Suddenly, he was shocked to find that there were countless particles and all kinds of dust hitting his head, and he subconsciously shook his head. A large piece of soil suddenly peeled off. His face became more and more ugly, his breathing was heavier than usual, and even the skin on the surface of his body trembled a little, and he involuntarily stepped back. Dustless's small hand shook, and the super-large meteorite in the sky also jumped. This indescribable oppression almost forced Blackbeard to collapse, and sweat kept falling like raindrops. I can't be caught by him so easily. My dream is not to just eat the dark fruit and report to the dark hell of Impel Down. It's too early. Blackbeard roared with his hand down, his tone was like a mad dog. A cornered dog will jump over the wall, and the crazy actions of Blackbeard were beyond imagination. It's really hard for you. Don't be so nervous. I said it won't fall on your head. After all, this is equivalent to a move of mutual destruction. Pointing to the meteorite, Dustless waved his hand and chuckled, indicating Blackbeard to rest assured. Your words can only deceive ghosts. Blackbeard's eyes widened, and after a muffled groan, a cruel and treacherous arc appeared at the corner of his mouth. His body suddenly plunged into darkness and swallowed him in an instant. Immediately, the black mist suddenly disappeared, and Blackbeard himself also dissipated. Huh? The dark fruit has this ability? Dustless's calm eyes splashed with ripples, and he was slightly surprised. He had never heard that the dark fruit had such a strange and unpredictable ability. He actually used the dark fruit to swallow Blackbeard himself. However, it's just a flashy trick. Observation Hockey spread out and took in the wind and grass around him. Dustless suddenly chuckled casually, and the teasing laughter was obviously full of sarcasm and ridicule. The void inevitably swayed with slight ripples. Even if the concealment was seamless, it was still tantamount to a fool's dream to escape from Dustless's perception. Covering up will only increase vulnerability and make oneself look more pale and powerless. This is an evasion in the face of cruel reality. Whiz! A black iron rod condensed in his hand in an instant, and he immediately turned and threw it out with all his strength. How did this guy find me? Blackbeard was shocked and quickly revealed his physical body. Although this black iron rod looked ordinary, it gave him goosebumps. Then, he activated the dark fruit's ability without hesitation. Dark water. There was a distortion in the void, and a black whirlpool suddenly appeared and swallowed the black iron rod in an instant. He actually swallowed yin-yang release. This is actually no different from an alternative space ninjutsu. Dustless secretly nodded and guessed. Release. With a loud shout, a thick black darkness suddenly emerged from Blackbeard's body. A black iron staff darted out from within, aiming at Dustless. Idiot. You want to use my ability to defeat me? You're still dreaming. Dustless leaped into the air and casually kicked away the iron rod that was transformed from the yin-yang escape. To others, the yin-yang escape was something that could not be touched. It had no effect on him at all. The focus of his line of sight turned to Blackbeard's body. His pupils were enlarged, and there were ripples in his eyes. There was a faint black irregular flame jumping. Amaterasu. Along with Dustless's voice falling, Blackbeard's body suddenly flashed with a black monstrous flame. The biggest disadvantage of the dark fruit was that it could not be elementalized. It was dark itself, so it could not be elementalized like other natural ability users. Ouch. It hurts so much. What the hell is this? Blackbeard's face was filled with astonishment as he howled in pain. His screams of pain were torturous. As time passed, his screams became sharper and sharper. He was filled with despair towards his fate. He let out a low roar, filled with unprecedented hatred towards Dustless. Get out of my way, how can I be burned by this thing? The tortured Blackbeard waved his hand, and endless darkness broke out of his body and directly swallowed the burning Amaterasu. Blackbeard stood up awkwardly, and there was a burnt stench all over his body. Where did this roasted pig come from? It's so disgusting. Would anyone eat it? Dustless smiled as he looked at Blackbeard, who was almost burnt to charcoal. Blackbeard was unmoved. His eyes were about to crack, and then he smiled cruelly. Then I'll return it to you. Enjoy it. Release. The ugly body once again erupted with a black pillar that shot into the sky. The swallowed Amaterasu was released and instantly ignited Dustless's body. You idiot, you don't seem to understand human language. I already said that my attack doesn't work on me, but against others, it's a natural enemy. Dustless looked at Blackbeard hopelessly. His body suddenly erupted with a strong devouring force, and it was like a black hole. It swallowed the Amaterasu fire in an instant. He could absorb all techniques. Hee hee. So what? Your attack doesn't work on me. Any attack can be absorbed by me. This is the power of the dark fruit. Ordinary people can't understand it. Blackbeard smiled with exultation. The dark fruit was the most ferocious devil fruit in history. When its power was used to the limit, it was not inferior to Whitebeard's tremor fruit. It was even more comprehensive in some aspects. The confidence in his words made people involuntarily convinced. It seemed that everything would play out as he predicted, and there was no escape from Blackbeard's control. Is that so? Then for the next move, you have to pay attention. Don't get killed. Sometimes it's extremely difficult to control strength. In short, I'll try to suppress it as much as possible like before. His body suddenly flashed with an emerald brilliance, and an unprecedented storm was brewing in Dustless's hand. Chapter 671. The violent hurricane was biting cold. Even the floating meteorites in the sky were rotating with the wind's speed, constantly trembling. Blackbeard felt a burst of fear when he saw this. He was afraid that Dustless's technique was not good enough and he would be implicated. It's funny that such a cowardly person could become one of the Yonko, for emperors, in the future. Sometimes the goddess of fate is really blind. Dustless couldn't help but complain. Blackbeard didn't care. He sneered at the idea of risking one's life. Only by doing so could one set foot on the top. The so-called dignity was like human clothes. When one didn't wear it, it didn't matter. At most, one would be mocked by others. But when one wore it, Blackbeard thought it was just a facade. The emerald light gradually enveloped Wu Chen's entire body. His entire body emitted a noble luster that couldn't be offended. He was so lofty that Blackbeard could only look up to him. You think you've turned the tables? It's not too late to dream now. Dustless, who had completely entered the Tensigan chakra mode, looked at him coldly. This guy was too arrogant. As long as he deliberately exposed a flaw to let him take advantage of him, he would immediately start to raise his nose to the sky. Whoosh! Between his hands, a hurricane was spinning rapidly. The hurricane was not large, about the size of Dustless's arm, but this awe-inspiring hurricane was extremely domineering. Damn it! You made me so scared. Grandpa Titch can handle such a ridiculous trick without running. Blackbeard's old face suddenly became arrogant, and he sneered at Dustless. However, before he could be proud of himself, a crimson halo enveloped him in the next second. Fire ring, pillar of fire. Blackbeard's face was dull, and he instinctively looked up. Surrounded by the cylindrical flame halo, the temperature around him began to rise rapidly. Flame? Looking at the flame falling from the sky, Blackbeard was stunned. Boom! The pillar of light condensed on Blackbeard's body suddenly exploded, and the earth trembled. The flame, full of majestic destructive power, was unstoppable, annihilating Blackbeard in an unstoppable manner. Looking over, it was Fire Fist Ace who launched the sneak attack. This guy is quite interesting. Dustless's eyes lit up. His view of Ace had also changed. The reason why he hadn't launched an attack was because he had sensed Ace's awakening and knew that this guy was preparing a big move. He originally thought that he would sneak an attack on Dustless, but he didn't expect that his target would be Blackbeard. Perhaps compared to the despicable and shameless Blackbeard, Dustless was much kinder. I really hope to see the scene of you being beaten until you look for your teeth on the ground. Unfortunately, I have already reached my limit. Ace said in a haggard manner. Immediately, he unwillingly shut his eyes. Taking a closer look, there was a deep red bloody hole in Ace's abdomen. It was almost pierced through. It was already a miracle that he was able to hold on until now. Most likely, he would pass away soon. Dustless frowned and looked at White Zoo. Obviously, he couldn't let the kid die peacefully. It wasn't that he was suddenly kind-hearted and thought that he would have compassion for Ace by suddenly helping him. Wuchen wasn't the kind of person who would practice medicine to help the world. It was just that Ace who was alive was more valuable than him who was dead. White Zoo nodded, indicating that there was no problem. At the same time, the pillar of flame that shrouded Blackbeard's body gradually dissipated, revealing Blackbeard who was black all over. His hair was all burned. Fortunately, I already had a defense, otherwise, I really would have lost my combat power. It's not impossible to be killed. Blackbeard rejoiced after surviving a disaster. Taking a closer look, he had already become bald, and his whole body was in tatters. Ha ha ha, you deserve it, you idiot. Staring at the unconscious and dying Ace, Blackbeard laughed wildly. His hatred for Ace disappeared in an instant. Anyway, there was no need to argue with a dead person. However, in the next second, his eyes widened strangely, and the refracted gaze was full of disbelief. White Zoo walked to Ace's side and looked at his wound. He didn't hesitate to cut off his right arm and put it into Ace's bloody abdomen. The white arm melted like liquid in an instant. This guy is surrounded by alien creatures. Blackbeard whispered to himself. Immediately, something even more unbelievable happened. The mysterious white liquid circled around Ace's eroded chest, and it had the magical power of decay. The wound, which was damaged by the bullet with armament hockey, slowly healed. Are you kidding me? How could this happen? Blackbeard roared in shock, with a sharp tone. At the same time, his eyes narrowed, and the light from his eyes was extremely dangerous. His eyes were locked on White Zoo, and he couldn't wait to rub him into his body. White Zoo couldn't help but have goosebumps. Are you kidding? Making a fuss out of nothing. Bringing the dead back to life is merely a thought from me. It's just that this brat doesn't have the chance to enjoy this kind of treatment, Dustless said nonchalantly. Resurrection, not reincarnation, this is the essence of Rinnegan. If you kneel and beg for mercy, lie down and shout, I am a roasted pig 3 times. I will reluctantly let you go. Dustless looked at Blackbeard, who was exuding a strange smell. At the same time, the power of the arm-sized Tekenabu in his hand was reduced. Fuck, you are dreaming. Blackbeard roared sharply, his teeth were almost broken, and blood was visible to the naked eye. He was afraid of death, and he could give up all dignity in order to live, but he couldn't be tortured by Dustless. Sometimes even a stray dog wants human rights. The negotiation failed, in this case. I wish you can survive. The Tekenabu, which was about to dissipate, enlarged again and always maintained the size of an arm. It looked quite pale and weak. Just with this? Come at me, I promise I won't run. Blackbeard sneered. Dustless's face was full of ridicule, and he couldn't help but shake his head. The people in this world seemed to be a bit narrow-minded, including Whitebeard. Silver will reincarnation explosion. Chapter 672. Along with Dustless's lonely voice, the entire world fell silent. The small tornado in his hand whizzed out and instantly enlarged. The high-speed rotation of the biting cold wind caused the hurricane to be as sharp as a knife. Those who were affected by it would have a shocking blood-red knife scar on their body. 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, until finally, it turned into a boundless apocalyptic storm. Only then did it stop evolving. The exaggerated momentum covered the sky and covered the sun. As for Blackbeard, he was already petrified. Poochie, the piercing pain caused Blackbeard's expression to change. He recovered from his daze and silently looked at the apocalyptic hurricane that was sweeping towards him. He opened his mouth but tactfully closed it. Even if he knelt down and shouted, "I, Blackbeard, am a roasted pig," 3 times, Dustless would not let him go. When the divine arrow was released, there was no possibility of retracting it. "Retreat quickly." Blackbeard's expression was decisive as he shouted at his companions in the distance. Immediately, he ran away without mercy. Staying here to be dismembered by the storm of swords was a stupid thing that only an idiot would do. Using the muscles on his legs to the limit, Blackbeard turned around and ran. Naive. I told you before to be tactful, but you are not tactful. Facing such a desperate situation, you can only blame yourself. You can't blame others. Dustless's mouth was suffused with a cold light as he sneered. Opportunities were given to those who were prepared. As for those who let go of the opportunity, whoosh whoosh whoosh, a person's speed was always limited. Compared to the violent wind, Blackbeard's crooked pace was not just a little bit slower. Under this situation, it was getting closer and closer to Blackbeard. Due to being too close, Blackbeard could even feel the terrifying wind and waves engulfing him. If he was caught in this extremely dense storm of swords, he would end up as a pile of minced meat. Thinking of this scene, Blackbeard's heart was thumping, as if it was going to burst out of his stomach. Want to kill me? Dream on, my dream will not be defeated by a savage demon like you. His body suddenly stopped. Blackbeard turned around and shouted loudly, trying to encourage himself and stabilize his fear. Facing death, especially the tragic death of being minced, no matter who it was, they would not be able to let it go. Dark water. A deep black hole appeared in his hand. It was different from before. Blackbeard's face was fierce as he clenched his teeth and persisted. He seemed to be struggling. This strange and irregular black hole had infinite gravitational force. The other side came from the abyss of the universe and could crush everything in the world. Ka ka ka, after a while, the black hole in Blackbeard's hand began to expand, violently pulling at the surrounding space, constantly expanding. In just the blink of an eye, it was the size of an adult human. However, this was only the beginning. The black hole condensed in his hand gradually left Blackbeard's palm and slowly rose. When it was several dozen meters above the ground, the gravitational force became several dozen times stronger. It was the same for the range. Boundless gravitational force shot out from the black hole. At this moment, space, air, and even time were all twisted and pulled over, forcibly stuffed into the black hole. The blade storm formed by the invincible, Silver Will reincarnation explosion, was also sucked over. Get in there, Blackbeard said with a sinister smile. Being chased away by Wu Chen like a rabbit, he had long suppressed a bellyful of resentment. Now that he could slap Wu Chen's face and destroy his trick, Blackbeard's heart was as sweet as eating honey. He was in high spirits and couldn't help but show a hearty smile. It was just that with his burned bald head, it was extremely funny. Boom boom boom, the black hole continued to expand. The black gravitational force from it was like an ancient beast. As long as one entered it, they would not be able to escape. Creatures and non-creatures were no exception. Ha ha ha. It seems that the final winner is still me, Dichi. Ha ha ha. Blackbeard waved his hands excitedly and laughed heartily. Victory is in hand? That's all it takes to make you overestimate yourself? Pathetic. Dustless shook his head helplessly. The power of the Tensigen in his right eye went berserk. He suddenly raised his right hand and aimed at the large black hole in the sky. The corner of his mouth curled into a sneer. The repulsive and gravitational forces of the Tensigen are enough to control the moon. I wonder what your dark fruit can do. I'm looking forward to it. As soon as he finished speaking, Dustless struck out with an extremely powerful repulsive force from his palm. It swept out like a monstrous wave, covering an area of 5 kilometers. Bang! Ka ka ka, in the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, the condensed black hole shattered like a mirror exploding. The black hole could not retaliate at all, it was so weak that it was not even worth mentioning. The silver will reincarnation explosion, that had been gradually weakened and swallowed, was released again. Moreover, due to the support of this repulsive force, it instantly moved forward dozens of meters and swallowed the dumbfounded Blackbeard. Poochie. Poochie. Ouch, 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 it hurts so much. This hatred, I will definitely make you pay me back 100 times over. In the next few seconds, Blackbeard, who was being devoured, screamed again and again. His screams were even worse than that of a pig being slaughtered. Occasionally, he would shout hysterically about taking revenge on Dustless. The latter, on the other hand, was a laughing matter. Whether or not he could survive was already a problem, let alone taking revenge. The rotating hurricane only lasted for a few seconds, but its frequency was extremely high. It could cut dozens or even hundreds of times per second. What would happen to Blackbeard after being devoured for a few seconds was self-evident. Stupid man, a mere floating monster trying to shake the towering ancient tree with the power of an ant, this is what will happen to him. Your ignorance has caused a lot of harm. This world is actually filled with people like you. Dustless muttered to himself. As soon as the words fell, the raging of the silver will reincarnation explosion also stopped, and the trembling island also stopped. The devastated island finally withstood the final blow. Although it was already crumbling, and there was the possibility of it collapsing at any time. The pungent smell of blood came head-on. Looking closely, Blackbeard was lying in a pool of blood all over his body. The shocking wound was clearly visible, and his breath was so weak that it could be ignored. Chapter 673. Blackbeard lay on the ground half dead, motionless. His body was badly mutilated, and the long purple scars on his back were unbearable to look at. These horrifying scars were all over his body. That big bearded man can't be dead, right? If he's dead, then how can we play? It's all Father's fault. After a while, little Yushi saw that Blackbeard refused to stand up no matter what, and couldn't help but whisper. Although her voice was as soft as a mosquito's, everyone present was an expert, and her voice clearly fell into everyone's ears. This little girl. Who did she get her temperament from? It's most likely Huey. Dustless couldn't help but ridicule in his heart. His gaze involuntarily looked at Blackbeard, fearing that this brat would suddenly stand up after hearing Yushi's complaints. These words were obviously teasing Blackbeard like a toy, and anyone would be incomparably depressed. Come here, Yushi. Dustless waved at Yushi. Nodding her head obediently, Yushi took light steps and cheerfully jumped over. The moment she passed by Blackbeard's originally lifeless body suddenly moved. His rough hands seemed to be able to extend without limit, easily grabbing Yushi's uniform and nimbly pulling out the gun in his hand and aiming it at Yushi's temple. This sudden scene made Dustless and White Zoo stunned. Bastard Blackbeard, if you don't want to be dismembered into pieces, quickly let go of Miss. White Zoo roared with overflowing killing intent. Keek. Do you think I'm an idiot? If I really let go of this shield, then I'll be dismembered into pieces, just like just now, ouch. It hurts so much. Along with the twisting of his body, there was suddenly a piercing pain that penetrated deep into his bones. Blackbeard's face was as white as paper from the pain, and his whole body uncontrollably broke out in cold sweat. His eyes were filled with resentment, and he stared at Dustless with cold eyes. If looks could kill, Dustless would have already become a human stick. You can actually stand up. It seems that your body structure is really different from a normal human's. Circling around the wounds all over Blackbeard's body, Dustless thoughtfully said. Her tone was light and gentle, giving people the feeling that she was taking a leisurely stroll in the afternoon. She did not sound anxious at all after her daughter was kidnapped. Your daughter is in my hands. You should be worried about her, not my body structure. If you don't want a bullet to open a bloody hole in her head, you better be obedient, Mr. Marine Admiral. Blackbeard warned with a hoarse voice. His sharp tone carried complacency and carefreeness. The battle had already reached this stage, yet he had finally turned the tables. Even though his methods were extremely despicable, he didn't care. It was enough to survive. Hearing this, Dustless shrugged and took a few steps back. Motherf asterisk cur, no matter what, you are still a captive. Hurry up and cry for me. Looking at the devilish brat, Blackbeard's head was burning with anger. As a hostage, she should behave like a hostage. Even if she couldn't cry, she shouldn't be as excited as she was now, as if she had been injected with chicken blood. Woo woo woo, she squeezed out 2 drops of sparkling tears from the corners of her eyes as she sobbed. Dustless Sama, you should have the ability to save Mississippi. Why haven't you done it yet? White Zetsu urged. No matter how strong Blackbeard was, he was not Dustless's opponent. Even if Blackbeard was now 5 times or 10 times stronger, wanting to kill Dustless was only a fairy tale story. White Zetsu was also convinced that with Dustless's strength, he could definitely save Yushi easily. This little girl, what did Kaguya teach her over the years? Dustless just sighed to himself. The 2 drops of sparkling and translucent tears that fell to the ground were naturally seen by Wu Chen's eyes. Looking up, he saw Yushi's pair of small hands rubbing her big watery eyes, coupled with her sobbing. It was a grief-stricken appearance. The only thing that was not complimentary was that even if the corners of her mouth were perfectly concealed, Dustless could still vaguely see Yushi's bright smile as if she had won a prize. Her acting was really clumsy, but her back was facing Blackbeard and her hands were covering, so Blackbeard didn't see it for the time being. Little Yushi obviously did it on purpose. Jia, since you guys are so tactful, I will leave, see you later. Seeing Dustless and White Zetsu tactfully take a few steps back, Blackbeard laughed unscrupulously. His tone was full of joy of surviving a disaster. His pupils dilated, the corner of his eyes stopped at Dustless's body, as if he wanted to engrave his face in his heart forever and take it back 100 times in the future. Jia, maybe I don't have to wait, I will immediately throw his daughter into the sea to feed the fish. Blackbeard laughed cruelly in his heart. He hated Dustless to the bone and wanted to drink his blood and eat his flesh. As long as he was sure that he could escape from Dustless's trap, he would kill his enemy's daughter. And hurt Yushi in the most cruel way. Dustless Sama, don't worry, that little girl did it on purpose. Waving his hand, Dustless interrupted White Zetsu's speech, staring at the gradually dissipating black shadow. He casually found a big stone and sat down, his expression indifferent and calm. He casually pulled up a green grass from the ground and held it in his mouth. When Yushi comes back, remember to wake me up, I will sleep first, White Zetsu. Finished speaking, Dustless didn't wait for White Zetsu to react and fell into a nap, causing White Zetsu's mouth to twitch, but then he thought about it and felt relieved. Dustless could give him so many strange abilities. Yushi, as a direct descendant of Dustless, even if her battle strength was not strong, she would have countless strange abilities to defend herself. Kidnapping Yushi, wanting to use her to leave safely, this was completely Blackbeard's wishful thinking. In reality, he was asking for trouble. Chapter 674. Dustless was lying comfortably on a large stone. His breathing was unusually calm and clear. His breathing was very regular and natural. He was really not worried about Yushi. After a while, he opened his eyes and carefully observed the stars in the sky. A playful smile appeared on his face. He had enough confidence in Yushi. Of course, he was not referring to Yushi's strength. Although she inherited the bloodline of Dustless and Kaguya, this little girl's strength was average. Most of the reason was that she refused to learn. Yen didn't care about that. Only her ability to escape was taught by Dustless. Dustless Sama, the relationship between Straw Hat Luffy and Pirate Hunter Zoro has changed completely. White Zetsu said without warning. The quiet night was broken by him. At this time, the sky was dark, and the sea in the distance was turbulent, setting off monstrous waves. Deep in the sea, there seemed to be prehistoric beasts rolling and stirring the sea. The whole sea was restless. Seeing this scene, Dustless couldn't help but frown. His eyes subconsciously looked at the sea where Blackbeard had escaped. Straw Hat Luffy. When did that kid hook up with Roland Zoro? Dustless, who recovered, was puzzled. If he didn't guess wrong, the two of them had met for some time, and it was not the island where he had sent Luffy off the ship. White Zetsu had expected this and told Dustless all the details of the matter. Unintentionally planted willows, and willows grow. Perhaps this is fate. After listening to White Zetsu's explanation, Dustless nodded and sighed with emotion. Everyone's fate was destined to be inextricably linked. Even if they were in different corners of the sky, they would still meet. What happened after that? What happened to those two brats? According to my guess, their strengths weren't on par with each other. The final outcome should be that both sides suffered injuries, and the victor couldn't be decided. Wu Chen said with a calm expression. Hearing this, White Zeus shook his head. Dustless had guessed wrong. Luffy and Swallow had decided on a victor. Straw Hat Luffy won. Of course, after the two of them fought for several hours, Zoro was moved by Luffy's will and was willing to join his pirate regiment. However, the two of them seemed to be born unlucky. The raft that they painstakingly built was eroded by the waves in less than half a day. White Zetsu shrugged helplessly. Dustless was silent. He did not intend to disturb Luffy's plan for the time being. Sailing required many companions, and it was impossible to explore the new world with only Luffy and Zoro. What are you guys planning? Luffy is still young, he has no value to you. Fire Fist Ace opened his eyes with difficulty. His freckled face was haggard and dispirited, as if he had aged several decades. His voice was unprecedentedly weak. Due to Zetsu's emergency treatment, Fire Fist Ace had been pulled back from the King of Hell, temporarily saving his life. Chess pieces are not divided into big and small. Those who can use the steel blade are often those who are not in the mainstream. Dustless explained while shaking his finger. Dustless observed Ace's body turning, and then looked as far as his eyes could see. In a trance, he saw Blackbeard fleeing in panic. Do you already feel regret? Serves you right. That's right, people like Titch, releasing a tiger back to the mountain is indeed a big problem. Ace used all his strength to mock Dustless. Only in this way would he be able to redeem his lost heart. Releasing a tiger back to the mountain? Nonsense, don't be a smart-ass. Dustless looked down at Ace, who was lying on the ground, and then smiled. I might as well tell you, I have been thinking of a reasonable way to let Blackbeard go without being suspected. I thought for a long time, but I didn't expect him to take the initiative to kidnap Moon Shi and escape. In fact, this is in line with my plan. Dustless told the truth. The 2nd Division captain of the Whitebeard Pirates is mysteriously missing. Whitebeard is bound to be crazy looking for you. Unfortunately, no one knows that you fell into my hands. Blackbeard won't say it, and I won't say it either. What's your goal? Ace asked with an ashen face. As Dustless said, Blackbeard will never speak. For the time being, he still needs to lurk in the Whitebeard Pirates to find a place to hide from the wind, and no one else knows about this incident. If Dustless doesn't say it, only ghosts in the world will know. Staring at the battered and exhausted Ace, Wu Chen's eyes shot out a cold light. One day in the future, when you recover, I will send you to Sengoku. Ace looked sluggish and looked at Dustless incredulously. He was not an idiot. Of course, he understood what it meant. His face changed in an instant, and he had guessed what his purpose was. From the beginning, your purpose was not for me to get the so-called dark fruit, but for the entire Whitebeard Pirates. His pupils shrank, Ace trembled, and his back was cold. Ah. Ace, compared to you just now, you are much more enlightened now. Dustless nodded, and his face was fierce. I know Sengoku's temperament. He will execute you publicly to lure the Whitebeard Pirates. In the future, Ace will be sent to Sengoku after he recovers from his injuries. Sengoku will definitely announce the news as soon as possible, and then set up an inescapable net to wait for the Whitebeard pirates. This is also the script of the War of the Best that Dustless planned a long time ago. No wonder you will leave me alive. Ace's eyes were full of despair. As the son of Whitebeard, he naturally understood the character of the latter. He valued his son as his own, and when the time comes, he will desperately kill the Marine headquarters. You will definitely cause a war by doing this, which is not good for the Marine. Ace advised. Dustless's dark eyes jumped with a deep light, and there seemed to be a black mist coming out of his eyes. At this moment, he was like a demon in human skin, extremely gloomy and terrible. No good? It's true, but, as long as I can destroy this world, it doesn't matter. Chapter 675. Ace's eyes widened as he looked incredulously at the smiling Dustless. As a Marine admiral, not only did he not choose to maintain the order of the world, but he also hoped that the world would collapse as soon as possible. It would be strange if he was not shocked. His cold eyes looked straight at Dustless's dead eyes, and the fire of ambition reflected in his eyes made Ace's eyes feel stinging. The burning flame was enough to swallow the whole world. Blackbeard thinks he's smart. Well, he deserves to be so unlucky. He wants to swallow the whole world with ambition, but he doesn't want to pay anything. It's impossible and unrealistic. Dustless whispered. There is no such thing as a free pie in the sky. A few years ago. The dark fruit that provoked the Whitebeard pirates and the Bigumamu pirates. It was just a bait I put out. I didn't expect it to really cause a war between the two evil fishes. Dustless sighed. The temptation of some devil fruits in this world is so great that it can cause a war between the Yonko, 4 emperors. After all, Doflamingo's flamingo fruit played countless pirates in the palm of his hand. The dark fruit, which is far more powerful than the flamingo fruit, is a deadly poison. Even if the Marine headquarters publicly executes me, my father will not be fooled. He is not an idiot. Ace said, but he lacked confidence, giving people a feeling of self-deception. Hearing this, Dustless just smiled silently. This is not something you should think about. Sometimes, he is such an idiot. Dustless said sarcastically. You don't have to worry about other things, as long as he is white and fat, and then welcome a death that is as eye-catching as your father's. In this world, only you and your father can enjoy it, no one else. Dustless said straightforwardly. People who can be publicly executed are rare, especially in front of the whole world live broadcast. This kind of high-standard death is only the Pirate King and his son. You shut up, he is not my father. Like a cat whose tail was stepped on, Ace lost his calm and roared. For the Pirate King Gold, Roger, he has a bone-deep disgust and hatred. That's your business. You have the bloodline of One Piece. That's a fact. Otherwise, do you really think you're that valuable? Stop lying to yourself, Dustless said in disdain. He couldn't help but feel speechless for this kid. No matter how bad Roger was, he was still doing much better than Fire Fist Ace. At the very least, he wouldn't have been publicly executed, become the prey of others' schemes, and drag others down with him. The more Ace criticized Roger, the more disdainful Dustless felt. In his opinion, this was just an escape in disguise. Early in the morning of the next day, the morning breeze blew and the sun shone brightly for thousands of kilometers. The violent storm that had overturned rivers and seas had finally stopped, and the tranquility of the past was restored once more. On the empty sea, a laughing raft was clearly visible. Brat, get over here. Sitting on the raft without a care for his image, Blackbeard's expression was so ugly that it could drip water. Staring at Yushi in front of him, his heart was devastated and hit. From time to time, there would be all kinds of creatures on the bottom of the sea. Yushi would threaten Blackbeard to catch them, otherwise, she would immediately jump into the sea and commit suicide. At first, Blackbeard thought she was joking. What does a kid know about suicide? He ignored her. Unexpectedly, Yushi really jumped. On the spot, Blackbeard was so scared that he almost lost control of his bladder. For the descendant of his enemy, Blackbeard naturally held hatred. He couldn't wait to kill her, but he couldn't die now. At least he had to escape from Dustless's capture. After spending a lot of effort, Blackbeard was able to get Yushi out. After all, he still had to rely on her to save his life. If she died, she might be caught by Dustless and torn into pieces. "What are you doing, Big Beard?" Yushi blinked and asked, her eyes flashing cunningly. Hearing this, Blackbeard's mouth twitched, and an unprecedented grievance rose in his heart. He suddenly realized that kidnapping Yushi was a wrong choice. Now he realized that it was not him who kidnapped Yushi, but himself who was kidnapped by Yushi. "Give me something to eat." After a moment of hesitation, Blackbeard took out the remaining iron box, which looked like compressed food, and handed it to Yushi. Although he wanted to starve her, he still hoped that Yushi would survive. "I don't want to eat this kind of thing, I want to eat a big meal." Yushi threw it back to Blackbeard. Blackbeard's old face shot out a murderous look. He warned with a murderous look, "Brat, you better be sensible, otherwise, I will tear you to pieces, and then take a little bit to feed the pirates." Blackbeard's eyes flashed with a terrifying light, as if he was a ghost, indicating that he was not joking. "You won't, if you do that, you will die. Such a simple raft will attract pirates, and it will be destroyed by large sea kings in an instant. You are a devil fruit user, you should understand the reason." Yushi smiled calmly. The fate of a devil fruit user who falls into the sea is self-evident and known to the world. "You are smart." Shuangyang stared at Yushi incredulously, and couldn't help but secretly nod. It was rare for a young girl to know so much. She was about to praise her when she suddenly realized that she was currently a hostage. "Bastard, you better not give me an inch and take a mile. If you anger me, I will definitely kill you." Blackbeard warned fiercely. Obviously, he kidnapped Yushi, but Blackbeard felt like he was waiting for a living ancestor. Blackbeard's face was black, and his face was twitching slightly. His embarrassed and angry appearance was extremely comical. A strange emotion that he had never felt before spread from the bottom of his heart. This was the first time in his life that he had felt so helpless, and was completely taken advantage of. Chapter 676. Blackbeard felt uncomfortable all over. Now it's more like being tied up. It's particularly uncomfortable. Even when he breathes, he feels an unprecedented discomfort. All in all, everything has changed. Now Blackbeard drank a stomach full of ink. He can only pinch his nose and swear that after returning to the Whitebeard pirates, he will make Dustless look good. Remember this clearly. You're just a hostage. There's nothing special about you, Blackbeard said coldly with a cold look in his eyes. He couldn't help but feel a burst of anger. It was fine that he was beaten up by Wu Qin. That was because he wasn't skilled enough and couldn't blame others. However, this little girl in front of him was ordering him around like a princess. How could Blackbeard's arrogant self-esteem stand it? As a hostage, he can't forget his duty. "Of course I know this, Big Beard." Yushi nodded her head in agreement, but the corners of her eyes revealed a disapproving craftiness. "It's best if you know what's good for you." Seeing this, Blackbeard was silent. This little girl was very eloquent. Blackbeard didn't think that his eloquence would be better than Yushi. After all, most pirates are rough men. Ouch, it hurts so much. Inadvertently touching the wounds all over his body, Blackbeard's face suddenly turned pale and he screamed in pain. This tragic scream made people's scalp numb. "Seeing you in so much pain, I don't mind helping you once." A heavenly voice that could not bear Blackbeard's pain sounded out, carrying endless compassion and kindness. Blackbeard, who was rolling around in pain, suddenly stopped, and his eyes subconsciously looked over. "Just by you?" Staring at Yushi, Blackbeard sneered, full of suspicion. If it was an ordinary passerby, Blackbeard can choose to reluctantly believe it. If the daughter of his enemy chooses to help him at all costs, Blackbeard won't believe it. What's more, he doesn't think Yushi has that ability. The way White Zetsu treats Fire Fist Ace. In fact, I can do it too, and I'm more familiar with it than him. Yushi's thin lips opened and whispered. White Zetsu. Blackbeard was stunned at first, then he remembered Fire Fist Ace who was brought back from hell. His eyes flashed with greed. For White Zetsu's magical power, he saw it in his eyes and remembered it in his heart. If possible, Blackbeard wanted to kidnap Zetsu to be the ship's doctor. In the end, he is just a product created by my father. What he learned can only be considered as superficial knowledge, but I have inherited most of my father and mother's abilities, compared to him, although my skills are not exquisite. Yushi said confidently as she patted her chest. Even so, it couldn't dispel the doubts in Blackbeard's heart. It was impossible for him to be so idiotic as to bet his life on the little brat. This was no different from setting himself on fire. However, these words reminded him of something. If his daughter can be abducted to my ship and become a pirate, haha. Thinking of this, Blackbeard couldn't help but laugh. Not only could he take revenge on Dustless, but he could also solve the problem of the ship's doctor, killing two birds with one stone. Since you can, I'll let you treat me once. You better not lie to me, otherwise, humph. Staring at Yushi's delicate face, Blackbeard finally made up his mind. As a reward, I will let you leave safe and sound. If you violate this oath, you will be struck by lightning. Blackbeard patted his belly, giving off a crisp sound as he vowed solemnly. His voice seemed to be filled with magic, causing others to involuntarily believe him. At the same time, dozens of meters below the sea, a sea king slowly moved forward. Its eyes were strange three-tomo Sharingan. Obviously, it has been forcibly controlled by Dustless to eavesdrop on the traces of Blackbeard and Yushi. Yushi, who hadn't returned for a night, still caused Dustless to worry. Serves you right. Your daughter was kidnapped by Titch. She's dead for sure. Ace taunted. He took the opportunity to add insult to injury. White Zetsu's face was cold when he heard this, and he directly went up with a heavy kick. Boom! Even though Baiju's attack power was strong, his strength was far beyond that of a normal human. He kicked Ace's face until it bled profusely. Just him? The simple and casual words were full of confidence, and at the same time full of contempt for Blackbeard. Dustless calmly said, Yushi inherited the body characteristics of me and Kagaya, and has the ability to repair without limit. It's difficult for Blackbeard to kill her. Looking at the unwilling Ace with pity and sympathy, Dustless didn't even have the mood to ridicule him, and waited quietly on the slowly drifting raft. Looking carefully, Blackbeard is no longer the same as before. His whole body has recovered, his whole body is bright, and his face is red. Blackbeard is no longer as depressed as before, and his whole body is full of vitality, glowing with a strong vitality. Ha ha ha, this feeling of pleasure is really good. Waving his arms, Blackbeard's mouth stinks, comparable to rotten fish. You're letting me go now, right? Covering her nose, Yushi's voice is pleasant to the ear, and her exquisite jade hand is gently waving, trying to isolate Blackbeard's bad breath. Let you go? How is that possible? Do you think I will obediently be the ship's doctor? Blackbeard's face changed into a sinister smile. Yushi's beautiful eyes flowed with sparkling tears, and her white and tender fingers trembled as she pointed at Blackbeard. You, how can you be so shameless, saying that you will be struck by lightning for breaking the oath? Blackbeard's face is sinister, and the corner of his mouth is high, with a contemptuous smile, pointing at the void. His expression is arrogant, with an indescribable savagery. If you don't accept it, then let the heavens strike me. Boom boom boom, the moment his voice fell, the cloudless sky suddenly became gloomy, and dark clouds gathered in the depths of the clouds, and dazzling thick lightning crackled, shocking the sky. The oath came true, you are on your own. Yushi blinked her eyes and smiled evilly. Blackbeard's eyes widened, and he looked at the lightning in the sky in horror. His heart was filled with fear, and he instinctively retreated, and a mouthful of old blood directly burst out. What kind of joke is this? Why didn't my previous wish come true? Chapter 677. In the sky above, dark clouds gathered and lightning flashed. The clouds above and below the clouds stirred, presenting a scene of the end of the world. The same scene played out in the sky within a radius of 10 miles. Oppressive and spectacular. Damn heavens, I didn't see you open your eyes before, but now you have. Blackbeard roared in fear. He couldn't bear the oppressive lightning. He pointed at the sky and cursed, as if this was the only way to vent the depression in his heart. Boom boom boom, the dark clouds in the sky seemed to understand Blackbeard's curses. The dark clouds in the sky expanded again, and the lightning became even more terrifying, as if it wanted to destroy the entire sea. Blackbeard smacked his lips as he saw this scene. He lowered his eyes and a cold light flashed in them. Is this little girl the heaven's granddaughter? Blackbeard, who didn't believe in ghosts and gods, guessed. For a moment, he also suspected that his brain was damaged. Jejej, the clear and melodious sound of a silver bell entered his ears and Blackbeard was stunned. He raised his head and looked down at Yushi. It must be because of you, you little rascal. Blackbeard's eyes revealed an ominous glint. He immediately showed his evil character. He raised his right arm and pointed his palm in the direction of Yushi. A majestic gravitational force suddenly shot out. Dark water. Blackbeard laughed sinisterly. However, the next scene caused him to be stunned. His face was filled with astonishment. Yushi's body seemed to not exist. She was completely immune to the gravitational force. No matter how strong it was, how wide the range was, it couldn't shake her. Hee hee. Big Beard, you will never be able to catch me. Her eyes narrowed into crescents. Yushi smiled proudly. Her crisp laughter was like the sound of a mountain spring, pleasant to the ear. However, Blackbeard felt a wave of nausea. It was full of sarcasm and ridicule. She was so close, but he couldn't shake her. Wasn't this indirectly mocking him for being useless? I'm just thinking for you. You have angered the heavens by randomly swearing. If you kill me, you won't even have a corpse left. Yushi softly persuaded. Blackbeard only sneered when he heard this. Although I don't know how it happened, it should be your doing. As long as I kill you, all of this will disappear. Blackbeard said through gritted teeth. At this point, he had also given up on his unrealistic thoughts. As long as he could quickly send this living ancestor away, nothing else mattered. As for the idea of asking her to be the ship's doctor, he had also thrown it out of the window. Survival was the most important thing. Kill me? The key is, can you do it? Her thin lips slightly opened. Unlike the past, Yushi said lightly like a breeze. Kagaya was a divine tree, possessing insane vitality and recovery abilities. She had also inherited a large amount of chakra. You're just a little girl. Don't get carried away. Boom boom boom. Blackbeard's angry roar had yet to fall when the divine lightning that had been brewing for a long time rumbled down. The momentum of the divine lightning that could destroy the heavens and the earth made people tremble with fear. A trace of despair involuntarily rose from the bottom of their hearts. Fortunately, Blackbeard, who has extraordinary observation haki, has already predicted that although the lightning is fast, his attainments in observation haki are deeper. Dark water. The space shattered like a mirror, and a gigantic black hole suddenly appeared. At the instant the lightning and thunder attacked Blackbeard, his heart leaped to his throat. Then, the boundless gravitational force from the black hole spread out and instantly engulfed it. TSK 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 TSK. Idiot. Blackbeard beamed with joy. Gravity is the natural enemy of all things and affects the whole world. There is no ability that can ignore its existence. It can be so powerful now. When it is easy to use in the future, its power will be even more terrifying. You really are an idiot. Looking at Blackbeard with pity, little moon, she let out a long sigh that did not match her age. There is no doubt that gravity is terrible. He also has to vary from person to person. Although the strength of temporarily obtaining the dark fruit is strong, he is still too far away to completely control it. You can swallow lightning, that's your self-deceiving idea. Yushi said indifferently. Boom boom boom, as if it was efficacious, a vast and pure lightning that was dozens of times thicker than before converged and instantly became 10 times thicker. The oppressive lightning made people not dare to look directly at it, and the hair all over their body trembled uncontrollably. Blackbeard's old face involuntarily flashed with fear. What a shocking aura! Blackbeard said with an ugly expression. This was not all the lightning in the sky. If all of them gathered together and fell. Just imagining it made Blackbeard shiver, and the fear in his eyes disappeared in an instant. Coax her. Blackbeard, who thought for a long time without any countermeasures, could only lower his arrogant head and turn to ask little Yushi for help. The situation was stronger than him. If he wanted to live, he had to beg for mercy. His rough fat face tried to maintain a kind smile, even though it looked ugly as a pig. The moment he turned around, Blackbeard was dumbfounded. His mind was blank, and he lost the ability to think. The scene in front of him was actually empty. As for Yushi, she had already run to God knows where. Only Blackbeard with a face full of astonishment, waiting for the lightning to strike. Boom boom boom, while Blackbeard was in a daze, the thunder that filled the sky poured down in torrents. The short gap eroded him. His whole body was like a lightning man bathed in lightning. One could clearly see the skeleton inside his body. Dustless, who was resting with his eyes closed, suddenly frowned. He felt a pair of small hands surrounding him. Opening his eyes, the reflection in his eyes was the smiling Yushi. Sighing helplessly, Dustless picked her up and scratched her nose. It's time to go back, Yushi. Dustless said softly. Then he carried her and disappeared from the island. He easily walked to the surface of the sea. It was clearly just a simple walk, but one step could strangely cross a distance of hundreds of meters. As for Fire Fist Ace, the person in charge of him was White Zetsu. Chapter 678. Blackbeard's life or death is not important to Dustless. Everything is just fate, and no one will care about what happened to him. However, according to Dustless's guess, Blackbeard, who is full of luck, will never stop here in his life. His partner is still at large for the time being, and he should not give up Blackbeard easily. It takes a few days to reach Mariehua by boat, but Dustless only takes half a day to walk. Dustless's villa as a celestial dragon was brightly lit. When he arrived at Mariehua, it was close to dusk, and the gorgeous sunset was beautiful, enveloping Mariehua, like a paradise on earth, and the golden color was beautiful. However, no one knew about the other miserable depravity after the golden brilliance. After half a day of walking, Dustless also felt deeply tired, and the cells all over his body began to protest against overtime. He wanted to ask White Zoo for other news, but he didn't think about it. There was still a long time in the future, and there was no need to be so anxious. When he came to the bedroom, Dustless suddenly found that Yushi, the brat, had fallen asleep, with saliva on the corner of her mouth. He didn't know what she was dreaming about, and she was giggling, which made him speechless. After taking Yushi back to her room, Dustless went back to his room to sleep. It was said to be sleeping, but he actually came to another world. The dark blue dreamy void, the fresh space makes people feel comfortable, and the majestic wind stacks up, beautiful as a painting. Dustless, who was invited by Heir, came to the system world again. The lottery is held once every 5 years. After more than 10 years, Dustless has 2 chances, which is not easy to come by. Coming to the system world, Dustless first thought of the girls. As for the lottery, although it is important, it is not important to put it before or after, and it is even more insignificant compared to the beautiful scenery. This caused the system consciousness Heir to complain. In the room of the antique fragrance, Kagaya sat by the window, looking at the scenery outside the window. Her beautiful eyes were empty, and sometimes she would show a charming smile. Her pretty face was slightly red, and suddenly she was shocked to find a skilled big hand exploring her body. The movement was extremely skillful, gentle and delicate, like a spring breeze, and Kagaya's heart was rippling, and it immediately heated up rapidly. After a few rounds of teasing, Huey's breathing became heavier. "Don't mess around. It's still daytime." Huey blushed and said shyly. Even without turning her head, she knew that the owner of the careless hand was Dustless. In this world, only Dustless understood her body the best. Even though she was already over 1,000 years old, she was still much more conservative than Yuluo and the other ladies. She immediately tried her best to stop Dustless. "So what if it's daytime? The opportunity is fleeting. After a while, we'll all be sleeping together." Dustless had a mortal body and he had not eaten for many days. Furthermore, he had gone through 2 consecutive fierce battles. The flames had already filled his body and mind. If he didn't release it now, he might explode. "I heard from Ueshi that you have a beautiful maid in the outside world," Huey said as she slapped away Dustless's thick arm. Her tone was somewhat resentful. "That traitor, I gave her food and drink every day, and now she dares to betray me." Dustless roared with righteous indignation. Even so, his sneaky eyes circled around Huey's body and flashed a bright light. Obviously, he didn't care. No matter how Huey resisted, the hand chakra surged, and the two directly faced each other. The red-eyed Dustless directly rushed towards Huey. "Don't do it here, they can," Huey, who couldn't resist Dustless, panicked. Tsunade, Terumi Mei, Yuluo, and the other women in the pavilion in the distance could clearly see. Although their strength was not as good as Dustless and her, they could still hear the sound at such a short distance. "Isn't this just right? How exciting!" Dustless laughed. Immediately, no matter how Huey resisted, he directly covered her mouth. For the strong Dustless, the bed was too redundant, standing was enough. Until Huey couldn't bear the burden and fainted, and several other women were also fainted one after another, Dustless hummed a little tune to find the system consciousness Ling. There's no need to make such an expression. Looking at the black-faced Ling, speechlessly, Dustless secretly scolded her. He hadn't relaxed for a long time, and the masculinity that had been accumulated for a long time must be released. It's not a big deal to be ridiculous. Why don't we do it once? Dustless smiled maliciously. In contrast to the outside world, he was like a sculpture all day long. Now he was like a dissolute noble's son, and he was the kind of person who dared to tease anyone. "I haven't seen you for a few days, and your courage has grown a lot. You even dare to say such things to me." The system consciousness Ling looked at Dustless with interest, thinking of his glorious history. The reserved little brat in the past is now an adult, and knows how to do things that adults do. Dustless, who had lived 3 lives, could naturally hear Ling's teasing, but he didn't care. After holding it in for so long, it didn't hurt to occasionally indulge to improve the quality of his life. Yushi, that little girl, would pester Wu Chen every day for various reasons. Even when sleeping every day, she would do the same. She would use groundless reasons to sleep with him. Wu Chen's inner depression could be imagined. Every day felt like a year. With such a good opportunity in front of him, he naturally wouldn't let it go easily. "With just you? You're still too far away, your little body will be sucked dry by me." Unlike before, Ling smiled. Her body also twisted, and that soul-stirring curve made Dustless dazzled. He was sure that the system consciousness in front of him was definitely in existence with some flesh. Chapter 679. Ling's devastatingly beautiful peerless talent was naturally coveted by Wu Chen. Unfortunately, Prince Xiang had a dream, but the goddess had no heart. Ling's body belonged to Wu Chen from beginning to end, but her heart was an exception. Dustless, who was not her opponent for the time being, certainly couldn't force himself on her. The 2 lottery draws have begun. Without waiting for Dustless to answer, Ling waved her hand lightly, and purple gas rotated on her fingers, floating with an indescribable charm. That mysterious power seemed to be the origin of the universe, and it could evolve any matter in the universe. In the blink of an eye, a giant will was formed with a bang, and dazzling abilities were marked on it. Gulp, even though Dustless's heart had been trained to be as firm as a rock, in the face of this scene, he couldn't help but choke up. Looking at the whole world of one piece, he was lonely at the top. And the whole vast universe? It was just a drop in the ocean, and he still had to rely on these abilities to step into a higher world. It's about to start. Ling opened her mouth and exhaled an intoxicating fragrance. Her pink and tender lips parted as she spoke. Dustless nodded when he heard the words, indicating that it could start. Looking at the various abilities on the wheel, the desire in Dustless's eyes was undisguised. Protecting these lovers and family members who were together with him day and night was his motivation to become stronger. The system was to provide him with assistance to become stronger. By the way, how is Yushi's strength? Her bloodline has the advantages of Kaguya, a rare peerless genius. Seeing that the wheel showed no signs of stopping, Yushi praised. Kaguya was the sacred tree itself, and Yushi was her Ling. Her aptitude and strength were self-evident. I also have my advantages. Dustless stared at Ling, and then said helplessly, aptitude is not important. Yushi doesn't seem to be interested in cultivation. Let her be, it's not like I can't protect her. The gentle tone was full of confidence, and Dustless's face was full of love. He liked this hard-won daughter very much. Ling, who was about to speak, suddenly raised her eyebrows, and the ground shook slightly. Buzz buzz buzz, the large turntable stopped spinning, and the scene that came into view was unflattering, at least in Dustless's eyes. He was not interested in it at all. Last time, it was Uchiha Madara's Tengai Trembling Star, and this time, it's Tomb of Samsara, Border Prison. Although it's a good technique, it doesn't work on me at all. He shook his head and sighed helplessly. His bleak tone was filled with disappointment. What he got this time was Madara's strongest move, Will Grave, Border Prison. However, it was useless, at least to the current Dustless. It wasn't just a technique like Tomb of Samsara, Border Prison. Even other heaven-defying techniques had little effect on Dustless, to the point of being negligible. You can only blame your bad luck. This kind of thing depends on your luck. At the same time, her jade-like fingers gently waved, and the large lottery wheel that had stopped began to spin once more. This was the second and final lottery draw. Look at my luck. That's also because your luck is bad, I didn't touch it. Dustless directly complained. Suddenly, he felt a warm mysterious force quietly passing through his eyes, staying for a moment, and then rushing into his nerve endings, disappearing without a trace. Dustless knew that Tomb of Samsara, Border Prison, had been saved in his eyes. Shaking his head, his disappointment and frustration were swept away. The higher the expectation, the greater the disappointment. He just needed to keep calm. In fact, this is also a good technique, but your requirements are too high. Linger whispered. The power of Tomb of Samsara, Border Prison is well known. It once killed 9 Bijou in an instant, and easily injured Sasuke and Naruto, and this technique can be said to be unsolvable. Dustless gently nodded, reluctantly accepting Linger's words. Buzz buzz, after a while, the ground trembled violently again. Looking up, he saw that the large lottery wheel had stopped spinning again. This is Whitebeard's tremor fruit. After a brief moment of absent-mindedness, Dustless's pupils widened, and he exclaimed in surprise. As you can see, Ling echoed. This strange devil fruit was the tremor fruit. Known as the strongest paramecia, tremor fruit has enough power to easily destroy the world. But it seems to be useless for you. Wrinkling her white and tender nose, Linger said with a trace of sympathy in her tone. In the last few lottery draws, Wu Chen's luck was terrible. The things that were drawn were either unusable or had some other abilities. They were completely useless. Useless? You mean, tremor fruit. It's useless for me, but it's useful for others. Dustless's mouth raised a mysterious smile, and then his body slowly dissipated and completely disappeared. You want me to eat it? In the pavilion, Tsunade asked in confusion. Dustless nodded, and handed the tremor fruit to Tsunade. You are a strength-type player, and tremor fruit is very suitable for you. It has the power to destroy the world. Dustless promised. Whitebeard's power is well known, and Tsunade's power is also unparalleled in the world. Eating tremor fruit, there is no doubt that she can also go to a higher level. This is a treasure that the whole world wants. It's enough to cause an unprecedented bloody storm. Looking at the tremor fruit in Tsunade's hand, Dustless sighed. Is it appropriate to give such a valuable thing to me? Tsunade blushed, embarrassed. Dustless smiled slightly, and his eyes flashed with surprise. He didn't expect Tsunade to feel shy. Valuable? Maybe, if you have to measure the value of tremor fruit in you. Tremor fruit has a price but no market, and you are priceless from beginning to end, and the whole world can't exchange for it. Chapter 680. Even if you exchange the whole world for it, I will still be indifferent. This sentence lingered in Tsunade's ears, but it was deeply imprinted in her eyes. Her nose was slightly red, and the tears in her eyes almost burst out. However, Tsunade wasn't the kind of person who would cry. The strong were strong, and the weak were weak. She just used all her strength to force the tears into her eyes. It's just an ordinary devil fruit. How can it be so important to me? Tsunade said rudely to cover up the change in her heart. What kind of people are they? Forget it, as long as they are willing to eat it. Wuchen shook his head and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He naturally knew that Tsunade didn't mean what she said. In fact, she was moved to tears, but she was originally the kind of strong type. Perhaps if it was someone else, she would have already cried. Gulp. Tsunade took off the tremor fruit and looked at this strange fruit. She hesitated and put it in her mouth. After chewing and swallowing, her face suddenly changed and almost turned purple. It was no different from being poisoned. You bastard, this thing isn't used for murder, is it? Tsunade patted her chest and asked with a pale face. It was the most disgusting fruit she had ever eaten in her life, bar none. Just as she was about to scold Dustless, an unprecedented energy fluctuation suddenly emerged in her body, strengthening and changing her whole body. A majestic and boundless power surged into his heart. This is the devil fruit's ability? Tsunade's voice trembled, and her face was shocked. She looked at her arm in disbelief. Her white fingers looked weak, but Tsunade knew that she could easily flatten a mountain. Yes, this is the ability of tremor fruit. It is said to have the power to destroy the world. Dustless nodded and praised, looking at Tsunade with shining eyes. The old guy Whitebeard is so strong that the whole marine is afraid of him. To a large extent, it is because of tremor fruit. Its power is unparalleled, and it can easily destroy an island. I don't know to what extent you can use it. Dustless explained softly. The ability varies from person to person, and the key depends on the host. You want to know? Tsunade asked with interest. Isn't that obvious? Everyone wants to know the limit of the tremor fruit's power. Dustless rolled his eyes. Tsunade just smiled and immediately jumped up. Her white and tender fingers clenched into a fist, and with the force of falling, she blasted toward Wuchen. This crazy woman hasn't changed at all. Dustless, who didn't expect Tsunade's sudden attack, shook his head helplessly and remained silent. His body was covered with golden chakra. In fact, Dustless didn't hate Tsunade's attitude. Instead, he appreciated it. This was also Tsunade's personality. She was straightforward and forthright. Ken Susanu. Following Dustless's command, the golden shadow materialized, and a large hole-like frame condensed in an instant. The thick ribs were clearly visible. I used to worry about this thing, but now, break for me. Seeing this, Tsunade smiled pleasantly. Her tone revealed a kind of pleasure, as if she finally vented the grievances that she had endured for a long time. Her light voice was filled with unprecedented joy. Then, Tsunade smashed Kinsusanu's head like a cannonball. Kakaka, the seemingly ordinary fist instantly revealed its ferocious appearance. With an invincible state, it instantly shattered the mature Kinsusanu's head. It was as if she was cutting tofu. She just ate the tremor fruit. She can play to this extent. Dustless's eyes widened, and he couldn't help but secretly click his tongue. In his impression, Whitebeard was just a so-so. After thinking about it, he was relieved. Tsunade's foundation was originally good, and her strength was enough to shatter the earth. Now that she ate the tremor fruit, it would be strange if she couldn't break Kinsusanu. Looking up at Tsunade's smiling face, Dustless felt happy from the bottom of his heart. At the same time, he also had an idea in his heart. His confidant's basic strength was extremely strong. After each of them ate the devil fruit, they should have a great improvement. Tsunade and Kaguya were the same. Now Tsunade could easily destroy the mature Kinsusanu, and Kaguya ate the light fruit that Dustless got from the lottery, and her strength reached a higher level. Hey. How long are you going to look down on me? You dare to be distracted in the battle. Tsunade's angry roar resounded through the sky, and the dissatisfaction in her tone was clear. She glared at Dustless, and the strength of her fist became more domineering. The moment he came into contact with Dustless, he merely lifted his palm in a carefree manner. Boom! The powerful fist containing the power of thousands of pounds fell softly in the palm of Dustless's hand. He grabbed it lightly, as if he was grabbing a baby's small hand, and played with it casually. How is it possible? Tsunade lost her mind for a while and said uncontrollably. Her current strength had reached an incredible level, but Dustless could still borrow her attacks so easily. It would be strange if she wasn't surprised. Impossible? My body is equivalent to the Jubi, and I have practiced taijutsu for more than 10 years in the One Piece world. The toughness of my body has long been beyond your imagination. Dustless explained calmly, and his tone was as light as a breeze. Seeing Tsunade in disbelief, Dustless just smiled. Over the years, Tsunade and the others have been improving. With the help of Kaguya, the ancestor of chakra, their strength can be said to be 1,000 miles a day. But they also ignored one thing: Dustless is also improving rapidly, and the speed is faster than them. Chapter 681. Tsunade was shocked. She didn't expect that the gap between her and Wu Chen was so big that she couldn't look at his back. She could only stare silently behind him. I didn't expect you to progress so fast, Tsunade. Perceiving the strength of Tsunade's fist, Dustless gently nodded, showing a satisfied smile. Perhaps if it was someone else, they would be turned into a pool of flesh and blood. Am I strong? Tsunade's beautiful eyes rolled, flashing a strange luster. Her eyes narrowed into a crescent moon, with a teasing tone. Hearing this, Dustless frowned slightly, feeling that Tsunade's words had other meanings, but he still nodded. Tsunade's current state was indeed different from before. There was a dimensional gap. If that's the case, then I'll let you see a stronger me. As soon as the words fell, Dustless grabbed Tsunade's fist, and a white halo swept out without warning. Then, the entire space roared and trembled, making a violent vibration. Ripples visible to the naked eye spread rapidly along Tsunade's fist, like a wave erupting and swallowing the entire sky. A faint sound of sorrow rang out, spreading to every corner of the world, and the entire void was surrounded. Kakaka, the void in front of Dustless suddenly burst, and cracks like a spider web appeared. Violent energy fluctuations extended with these transparent cracks. Dustless was annihilated in an instant. Pucci, caught off guard, Dustless's body was instantly torn apart, turning into several halves floating in the air. Dustless's eyes were full of a rare dullness. Although it's my carelessness, but how is this possible? Did Tsunade not use the power of tremor fruit in the attack just now? Dustless's heart was shocked, speechless, like the waves for a long time. Silent for a while, Wuchen knew that it was the ability of tremor fruit, Gura Gura no Mi. It can cause vibrations at will, and the degree can be adjusted. It can cause tsunamis. It has the power to destroy the world. Boom boom boom, a loud roar woke Dustless up from his thoughts. He looked up and saw the ground burst open. A ferocious crack appeared, extending endlessly into the distance, as if it was going to pull the whole world into it. Dustless's old face twitched as he looked at his body that had been torn to pieces. He felt gloomy. With a thought, his body recovered. Hee, how does it feel to be torn apart? Tsunade teased. In the past, it was difficult to even touch Dustless's body. Tsunade was also surprised. She didn't expect the devil fruit to be so powerful. It was true that he had the power to destroy the world. How does it feel? What do you think? I have an immortal body. Physical attacks of that level are just tickling. Dustless didn't care on the surface, but his heart was full of anger. If he didn't teach this little girl a lesson, it wouldn't take long for Tsunade to turn over and press Dustless under her body. Although he had an immortal body, it was not a glorious thing to be torn apart. Dustless's sharp eyes stared at Tsunade's body, and the corner of his mouth raised a malicious smile. His pupils twisted sharply, and his left eye turned into a purple Rinnegan Sharingan. Dustless also planned to try the jutsu he got from the lottery. Staring at the place where Tsunade stood for a long time, Wu Chen's left eye suddenly widened, and dangerous energy fluctuations were released. The invisible ripples instantly swallowed the entire eye socket. At the same time, a mysterious, undetectable, and undefendable power fluctuation covered Tsunade's whole body, but it was very weak. It looked harmless and almost negligible. Tomb of Samsara, border prison. With Dustless's voice fell, this mysterious unknown power, in just an instant, became thousands of times stronger, and Tsunade's whole body was bounced away. Boom boom boom, under the impact of the powerful force, Tsunade directly smashed a mountain out of thin air, and easily turned it into dust like tofu. It was enough to show how shocking the power of Tomb of Samsara, border prison, was. That bastard must be deliberately revenge, narrow-minded man. Under the ruins, Tsunade was intact, and her snow-white skin was pink. The most exciting thing was that under the impact of the strong repulsive force, the clothes all over her body were blown apart. Her clothes didn't cover her body. Even with Tsunade's forthright personality, she couldn't help but blush at this moment. Because the two behemoths in front of her were too big, she directly drooped. This scene caused one's imagination to run wild. Little guy, you dare to fight with me? In the sky, Dustless laughed in high spirits. Even with the mountain ruins buried, Tsunade was exposed under Dustless's eyes. Her jade-like body was exquisite, as pure as the first snow, dazzling him. The extinguished flame in Dustless's heart soared again. Really? When did I become like this? Shaking his head fiercely, trying to calm himself down. Dustless couldn't help but laugh bitterly at himself. In the past, he could clear his mind, but recently, it seemed that he was getting more and more out of tune, and his whole mind was filled with images that were not suitable for children. Boom boom boom, the earth trembled as an energy fluctuation powerful enough to destroy the heavens, and the earth burst out from the ruins. It was like an evil dragon that had awakened from its slumber in ancient times. It stretched out endlessly with a monstrous momentum. Immediately after, countless large pieces of rubble collapsed, turning into fine particles that resembled a drizzle. The naked Tsunade suddenly reflected in Dustless's eyes. It doesn't matter, anyway, it's not like you haven't seen it before. With her hands on her hips, looking up at Dustless in the sky, Tsunade was unexpectedly magnanimous, and her jade-like face was natural and neat, giving the feeling of a heroine. Dustless's eyes couldn't help but stagnate, and his even breathing became faster. He was not a monk, especially after becoming a different kind of sacred tree. His energy and physical strength were almost infinite. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.